As journalists and television hosts, scripts are a lifeline. Each newscast, each story, it all revolves around a script.
But now it's time to go unscripted. That means we're not just going off script, we're throwing out the script altogether.
Each week, we're joined by fellow Farm Journal hosts and editors to peel back the layers on stories we've shared throughout the week.
Unscripted. It's real, it's raw, it's entertaining, and it's your chance to meet the personalities behind the personalities. I'm Tyne Morgan.
And I'm Clinton Griffiths. Welcome to Unscripted.
Clinton, we are back.
We are back. I know, it feels like, I don't know, a week or two since we did this, and it has been a little bit. We did, but you know, it was all for a good cause. A few days off here and there,
Yeah.
which,
And,
you know,
yeah,
the middle of the summer, time with family, trying to squeeze that into a busy news cycle is kind of hard, but we did
yeah. In full transparency, I took a week off. Clinton took a week off. He's been traveling. So we're finally getting together, and we have a good one on tap today. But Clinton, it was County Fair week. And so,
it.
you know, it's like after
bless your
County
heart.
Fair
You've
week,
sweated through everything. Let's
you
go.
know, but it's not bad. You know, James's rule, we cannot show live animals, only dead ones. So it's a little less work during County Fair time. But Clinton, you know, a
It's a
guy
strong
that
rule.
it is.
Hold on, I'm writing that down.
It's a strong rule and it's a good rule. It'll save you some money. But, you know, a guy that I thought would be under that same principle, that I thought would live his life by that and would not get into livestock at all, that's our guest today. But did you know, that the king of corn, or the corn whisperer, I forget what we called him last time, is actually also a cow wrangler? Let's bring him in, Mr. Ken Ferry.
Ken, I didn't know you dabbled in cattle once in a while.
Doesn't
Oh
just
yeah,
dabble.
I got a giant cow calf herd. You know, there's 5 of them out there.
Ken, I think
Just
Ken,
enough to get
that's
you up in the morning.
well, and I'm pretty sure that's the average size in Illinois, right?
Stop.
And it
Well,
was,
there's
Don't
nothing
put that
wrong,
in the
4-H
comments.
that brought them aboard.
Clinton and Ken. There's nothing wrong with that, because you go out there and any cowboy that looks at that dark black soil would say, "Yeah, don't put cows on this," right? Like
It's
it's
healthy out
meant
of
for
farming.
crops, not cattle. So don't get mad at me.
Ken, how did you get your 5 cows? Tell us the story.
Yeah, well, it started with 4-H. We had rabbits, then chickens, then cattle, and then after the kids got out of school, the rabbits and the chicken left because my wife wouldn't do those chores. So we took the cattle.
You just got the cattle still. Well, you know what? You're doing your part. And
That's right.
you know, pretty soon you'll be helping grandkids show, and that'll be that, right?
You bet.
Ken, in a second, we're going to talk about a specific issue, and I don't want to talk about it now. But overall, how do things look in Illinois right now? I mean, here we are going into the, you know, we're getting into mid July now, looking at late July. How do things look?
You know, locally here within our customer base, it looks really good. We had a field day here yesterday, and we do what we call a round robin crop report. And basically, they got to tell us average, below average, above average. And the majority definitely was above average, but there was maybe a few below average in some of those tougher spots. So it would suggest that this is a pretty good looking crop coming both in corn and soybeans.
You know, Ken, we think back to the planting season in Illinois, and it was kind of almost 2 different things where folks got in early. They were able to plant a lot of beans early, like you've been talking about for years there in Illinois. And then we had some pockets that got a lot of rain at the start of the planting season. Have you seen any differences in those different kind of pockets and terrain as far as moisture goes?
Yeah, and in some of those areas, they just couldn't stop raining, you know. So you got some pockets that you know, corn is knee high because that's how late they got planted, and you can see tile lines and stuff. The strange thing is those pockets stuck. I mean, it just kept raining and raining, and to some extent, it's still doing that today. Now, it's not as big in areas as we've seen like in 2015 and stuff, but now as far as the crop planted in early April versus the end of April versus May, it all looks pretty good right now in our local territory. You'd probably tip your hat to the May planted corn with the best stands and stuff. You definitely would tip your hat to the early April soybeans. And they're podding like crazy and have been podding since the first part of June.
But Ken, you've said, I mean, I remember you telling us last year that last year proved for corn, calendar doesn't matter as much as conditions. It's conditions, conditions. For soybeans, calendar matters more. And it seems like this year is proving you right. Once again, I'm hearing of some dryness in northern Illinois that may have taken a bite out of crop production up that way. Ken, is that the case?
Yeah, it is. As we get closer to Chicago, we've got some corn trying to pollinate, and it's in tough conditions right now. And again, we get these walls of rain that come across the state, but they seem to miss the same spot over and over again. Um, but it's not real big. We probably have as many wet spots where they're taking it 3 and 4 inches at a time as we do dry spots. So, but
Wow.
we do have some dry areas and we have a lot of areas that are close, meaning that they need a week to week type rain to keep this crop rolling. You can stick your hand down the cracks and that type of place. So it's not an abundance of water. And basically, we got 60 days left here to black layers. So that's going to play into that.
What I know we're going to get into some of the challenges out there with the crop, but as you look at this, there's all this speculation about whether or not we're going to see big yields, moderate yields. I mean, from what you're hearing, it seems like a pretty standard, as long as you're not stuck in one of those spots that's either dealing with too much or too little rain.
Yeah, right now, as the state's concerned, we're looking pretty good. I think both corn and soybeans. Yesterday, as we talked to the crew, they're definitely more up on soybeans than they are on corn as far as positive. They think they got a big yield, but this is a good crop right now. It's got a good foundation under it. You got to start with a good foundation to get those bigger yields. So, I'm, there's going to be a lot of weather between now and the finish, but I think this is going to be one that's going to be rememberable, I guess, from a yield standpoint.
Well, and it will be memorable for another reason too. There's something that I did not have on my bingo card this year, and that's what we need to talk about right now in Talking Tea.
Tyne, you didn't put this on your bingo card. That wasn't something that you sit around at Thanksgiving every year and let's talk about this.
No, and in fact, I had to say it a couple times before I read it on air because it's a bit of a tongue twister. But
It
we
is.
started seeing it on social media last week, and when you start seeing things on social media like last weekend, you wonder, oh, how big of a problem is this? And then when Ken Ferry says it's a problem, then you know it's a problem. Okay, Ken, let's talk about it. Overly tight tassel wrap. Again, did not have this on our bingo card this year. What is it, and how big of a problem is it this year?
It's that situation where corn will do it in the rapid growth stage. So you're in that V6, V7 from there on up through tassel. You go into rapid growth stage, and this thing is growing like crazy. You're putting on 1.5 inches of root a day, and you're putting on a node every 3 days, that type of thing. The tassel can get wrapped really tight, and usually it's triggered by some type of stress in the rapid growth stage. And your hope is that that tassel gets out of that tight wrap before pollination starts. And this year we have some hybrids that are really struggling to get that done. And unfortunately, the tassels still wrap tight, and the silks are out, and they're waiting for that pollen. And I got a couple examples here.
Oh, yes, we
You
love
brought
show and
stuff.
tell.
I love
We
it. You
love,
brought stuff.
Yeah.
I love show and tell, Ken.
So you can see that this is a long top. It's all wrapped tight. The tassel starts right about here.
Uh-huh.
This is all filled with pollen. And we do have some breakout here at the top. And surprisingly, how much this can pollinate if it does get out. But this pollen that's been in here has been trapped. And then unfortunately what happens is the bottom of the plant the bottom of the ear pushes its silks out first, and they can't find any pollen. And they're supposed to be pollinated, and then the middle of the ear pushes its silks out, and then the top. Well, when the middle starts to push its silks out, it covers up the bottom silks. And then when the top comes out, it covers up the middle silks. And if they're not pollinated, once they get covered up by other silks, it makes it harder and harder for them to get pollinated. And of course, that ear sits there and the silks drip off the edge of that ear. It makes the ones on the back side near the stalk hard to get pollinated.
Huh.
And in a lot of fields, they did get pollinated, but they got pollinated 7-10 days after the other kernels got pollinated. And then you have right now we have roasting kernels, right? Milk in them, and we have white blister kernels. And unfortunately, the white blister kernels won't hold. They will abort off of it. So that's leading to some of these pollination issues. Now, some of the things that we note as we go from field to field in it, it does seem to be hybrid specific, not one hybrid, but multiple hybrids. And they seem to be the hybrids that have one center spike that does all the heavy lifting for pollination.
Okay.
The varieties that have a branch, kind of a chimney sweep appearance to them, they're having a lot better role at this than the hybrids that have a long spike that does most of the pollinating, and they seem to have a little bit larger leaf surface as well. And we saw this wrapped up pretty tight 2 weeks before pollination, and the worry is, can we get it? Can we get out of that wrap before pollination? And this year, boy, some of those hybrids are struggling. So then it comes down to, is it 10% that look like this? Or is it 80 or 90%? So those fields that are 80 or 90% like this are the ones that are causing all the panic calls that are coming in now. If it's a small percentage of plants like this, then you're getting pollinated.
But can you?
Have you seen this before?
Yes. We've seen it before. Typically, like I said, it's related to some type of stress during pollination. A lot of times it's herbicide stress. Well, with herbicide stress, we can tell that because the overlap zones are the ones that show it. So where the sprayers would overlap, whether it's carryover or whether it's this year growth regulator or something like that, you would see your overlap areas showing it. And if it's just the overlap areas, the rest of the field will pollinate it. I have seen it too, which I believe came from wide swings in temperature. So you're up in that 85 to 90 degree range and you crash into the 50s at night. That seems to trigger a lot of the type wraps too. And I don't know why that mechanism is, but I've seen that before in the past. Probably see it every year to some extent. It's just on 5, 10, 15% of the plants, and that's not enough to slow down pollination.
Yeah.
And you could have it on 90% of your plants this year if you split the planter and the other hybrid in the planter synced up with your hybrid on silking. You wouldn't even know it. So the other one would pollinate it. In this case, some of the pollination out there you can tell is coming from the refuge in the bag. So the refuge in the bag isn't wrapped up. So it's the one that has a tassel out and it's trying to pollinate, the workload that's out there.
A couple quick follow-up questions. You're hearing true panic in farmers' voices when they call you.
Yeah. It's because when I'm getting the call, like I said, they're shucking down something they thought was pollinated, and then they're finding roasting kernels, and they're finding, anywhere from 10 to 40% of the ear didn't pollinate. And then they go to the next one, they go to the next one, they go to the next one. So, ideally, we'd be in the field during pollination. We would have saw this, before now. Still would have caused panic, but they thought they had this one in the bag, and then they're going back out there. Now, the good news or the bad news is it is hybrid related. So if we find it in one hybrid, you go to that hybrid in a different field, and you're probably going to find it. And the toughest that we're running into right now is for Central Illinois is a unique planting window. So the 14th through the 17th timeframe of April, that seems to be where we have some of the heaviest pressure of this problem. Now, will we see it outside of that? Sure we will. Will it be to the same extent? It could be, depending on each individual field. But right now, the service calls that we're handling do fall inside of a specific planting window. That window could be different for northern Iowa than it is for central Illinois. And I do expect to find more of this as we go on. But having a 1 out of 50 ears looking tough, that's not a big deal. But when you lay out 10 ears and 9 of them look tough, then that's going to ding the yield.
Yeah. And can you show us, Zach, can you bring up those pictures again so that we can see what this looks like? Because
here we go.
and this is an example. I know you did show and tell. This is an example. But one thing you told me when I called you yesterday, Ken, is you were talking about how we only have about 5 different tassel types across. I mean, go into that. Like, you think about how many seed brands we have. I thought every one was different, but you're saying we only have about 5 different tassels across the country?
Yeah, here at Crop Tech, we look at hybrid characteristics. We look at
Uh-huh.
plant height. We look at leaf structure, ear flex, tassel. We recommend growers take pictures of their tassels, and that's one way to identify a hybrid, right? So, and there's about 5, maybe 6 somewhat unique looking type tassels out there in all across all these lineups. So, and in this case, it does seem to be tagging for the most part, a specific tassel type. Now, if you have 5 hybrids and they all have the same tassel, the same leaf structure, the same height, and they come from 5 companies, there's probably going to be, a lot of common parenthood in there somewhere. There's going to be same males and females, that type of thing. I think that's what we're seeing here. Is you're seeing that the hybrids having trouble are very similar in their tassel type, would tell us that they probably their genetics may be close. They're not the same, but they may be close, and that could be what's triggering it.
Ken, as we talk about pollination, there's some conversations that we could warm up. Obviously, it's the middle of summer. Are we past the window where heat is a concern, or is that still an issue with what we need to get done out there as far as pollinating goes?
It's still an issue, and there's still a lot of corn. The May plant of corn is pollinating this week into next week, and then some of the later plant of corn. And if you're out there ahead of the game, and you find this tight wrap, for instance, and you start to concern, will I get pollinated? One thing you want to be careful of is you can't handle any amount of silk clippers. So now we have the Japanese beetle clipping silks, and now the rootworm beetle joined us here in the last 7 to 10 days. They're clipping silks. Well, a little bit of silk clipping you can live with, but when you're under this much pressure to get pollinated, you if you got beetle silk clipping going on top of this, you're going to up the odds. So you may have to go in there and do a preemptive strike, I guess you would say, to clean up your silk clippers if they're there.
Okay.
So silk clipping is still part of it. Aphids can be part of that as well, and then heat, right? You can't do anything about the heat, but you can manage those insects if they're starting to potentially mess with your pollination.
Yeah.
Does these, I mean, I was in Iowa this week, and the agronomists that I talked to, they weren't seeing widespread disease. We're seeing tar spot start to pop up, and I asked if this was early, and they said, well, early maybe compared to last year, but not compared to kind of a normal. Are you seeing tar spot pop up in Illinois, Ken?
Yeah, we're seeing tar spot in a lot of fields right now, but we did see tar spot here in Illinois already the last week in June. For us, that's early. The last time we had tar spot in June was 21, and it really butchered us before it got done. We'd like to see tar spot in the end of July out into August and then try to outrun it. It's been slow, but amazing how many pictures came in from the crew, the farmers that were here yesterday, showing us different pictures of tar spot severity, and it varies. And we actually do have areas at threshold that were treated this week, that type of thing, treated from a disease perspective. In general, the disease pressure is low. Now, tar spot's a little bit different. A little bit of it goes a long way making a mess. And we got a lot of areas that are picking up these 3, 4, 5 inch rains in a week. And that's where you'll see the tar spot really blast when it takes off. And it seems like when corn pollinates, after pollination, it gives up some of its disease resistance. So the disease pressure really ramps up after pollination compared to pre, and that plant kind of switches to making grain versus being protective in that case. So I do anticipate that we'll see a lot more disease pressure here, especially in our wet areas. Now, we're at a half an inch here in Haworth, Illinois in the last week, and you just go 15 miles north of Bloomington, Illinois, and they're probably 4.5 inches. So it's a situation where they keep sneaking our rain away from us. But that's where the pressure will explode, because the heavy fogs, the humidity in the morning, the wet leaves. It's going to be normal disease pressure with the side kicker of tar spot, and depends on when that tar spot started. Starting in June usually is a problem.
that humidity is pretty key here as far as in that high relative humidity. Now, as we talk about southern rust, it can take the top end off real fast. And I know we've talked about this before, but just remind people how fast that thing can come in. And then I want to follow up with, are farmers talking to you about fungicides? Are they using them this year, or is the price got a limit on that?
So, we deal with here in Illinois, we deal with both common and southern rust. Southern rust is a lot of times maybe 3 out of 7 years because we don't get hot enough to sporate it. And we deal mainly with common rust. Common rust is more of a nuisance disease. I guess you would say you add it into your other disease pressures. But southern rust will spank you. I mean, you got to stop that. So if you move further south where southern rust is common, it's a lot of those guys are just spraying twice for it to shut it down.
Okay.
So it does depend on where you live, how much southern rust you're going to have to deal with. The further north you go, the cooler climates, it's going to be harder for it to get established in time to do damage. The further south you go, you got to stay on top of it. It is again a disease you can scout for. You can get out there and situation stay ahead of it. But spraying twice for southern rust is fairly common. For us, it's not common enough to trigger double spraying. Now, double spraying for tar spot, there's a number of our customers that are going to do that because of 2021. They're not going to risk the back end of this crop. They'll spray right after pollination and then come back and spray in about 28 days or so.
Okay.
White mold. I mean, I know I'm starting to see some chatter about that. In your area, have you seen anything, or are you fielding calls from growers?
No, we haven't, which is kind of strange, but that can change. That can change today when I go out to the field. Sudden death and white mold so far in my area have been fairly quiet. Bean diseases in general have been fairly quiet, just like the corn diseases. Now, a week is a long time in a disease cycle. So, a situation where 10 days from now, I may have a different story.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So as you're scouting in the next week or so, and I know you're going to be busy, you're doing some corn college, you're doing some different events, some grower events there. As you're scouting over the next week, give me the top couple of things that farmers really need to be paying really close attention to beyond just checking pollination.
Now's a good time to start making some, you want to call it preseason estimates. We can identify ear counts right now. So how well did you pollinate? What's your ear count per acre versus your population? And that goes a long way at starting to predict what the end result is going to be. And it's just like this pollination issue that we got. Some of those fields are scheduled for fungicide or 2 shots of fungicide. You may have to reevaluate what your yield goal potential is, because if you gave it up at pollination, fungicide's not going to get it back for you. So how much, and that's a discussion we were having yesterday with the grower, is he planned on spraying twice with a fungicide, and now due to pollination issues, he's going to spray once. So that comes into part of it. How much disease pressure you got, and some of the guys are pulling back on fungicides because of the $4 minus corn, maybe 3 something. If you pull back on a fungicide, then what's your alternative? Can you harvest early? Can you get there before it gets in trouble? Does it have disease? So if you're going to spray, which field's got the most disease? And if you're not going to spray, what's your contingency plan as far as if this falls apart, are you going to be able to harvest it early? And that's kind of what we're looking for now, just trying to evaluate. And if we have issues with our ear count, now's a good time to figure out what those issues are. Was it planter related, weather related? We threw a lot of things at this crop, from wild temperatures, heavy rains, sandstorms. What's showing up in that crop right now, and that's how you improve on what you're going to do next year, by evaluating it now. Once you're on the combine through, there's not much more evaluation you can do on a plant by plant basis.
Ken, I know you have to go, but real quick before you go, I have a couple questions. Let's move into our next segment. What the Sigma? This relates to that. Okay, Ken, we've talked about a lot of things, but so far this year, across the entire growing season, what's been your what the Sigma moment, your what the heck moment that you're just puzzled by what's happening in the field?
It's probably this tight tassel. I've seen it other years. I've seen it in other fields. That's not a surprise, but this thing's a little bit bigger in size and scope than I'd anticipated it would be. So um, this is also why we tell growers don't plant all your maturities on the same week, right? You know, it's to mitigate risk. You break up your maturities, you break up your planting window so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. This is a great example of that, mitigating risk. But this is while I've seen tight tassel wrap before, this is probably the most extensive amount of acres that I've seen have been hit by it.
Yeah. Is it obviously, we're always on the hunt for the best genetics out there, and we've got good ones. I mean, you can look at what yields are over the last decade, and obviously we continue to make them better. It, is this part of that funnel of where we keep trying to squeeze the best genetics through the pipeline here, or is there enough variety out there that we get around it?
There's enough variety out there. Unfortunately, the hybrids that are having this problem are the big hitters for a lot of guys. So they tend to push the acre amount, in your bigger numbers, and having more than 30% of your ground in one variety becomes risky. But some guys will gamble when they find 2 or 3 hybrids that win. They'll lock down on those and cover all their acres with them. What wins this year wins because of the environment this year. And if that environment changes, you may have all your eggs in one basket and be in the wrong position. So a lot of times seedsmen will tell you, you need diversity. We're going to put this one here, this one there, and we'll try to break that all up. There's less risk of thinking, okay, I'm not trying to hit a home run every year. I want to be a little bit more defensive.
Yeah.
But you're selecting off a yield no matter what. Now, some of these hybrids will lose their spot in the lineup if these guys get digged hard, but the next guy who planted a week later or so doesn't see it. He sees the yield he wants. You probably ignore that warning.
Yeah.
Ken, my last question. Oh, go ahead, Clinton.
I was just going to say, it's been such a weird year. I mean, you talk about just the variety of things that have been thrown, and you listed them off, and they've just been thrown at this crop. I mean, you probably want a little diversity just because of all of the things that they've had. This crop out here has had to handle, and we're not done yet. We're almost, we're still pushing to the finish line.
It's one of the fun things that we see here at our Corn College campus. We have a lot of different planting dates in corn and beans. We got a lot of different maturities and different things like that. And every year, surprisingly, which one gets caught? We're glad I didn't have it all that way, but you realize when they're standing side by side in the field and you got green snap or you got this tight wrap tassel type thing, you realize that you can never pick it. You can't, so again, I've had growers say, Ken, swing for the fence and let crop insurance do the rest. And that's a plan, right? That's a program, but you realize
that's a choice. That's a choice.
But it's amazing in our blocks here are 3 acres at a time, right? So they're pretty small scale, but even 3 acres at a time, how changing a bean variety or changing a corn variety or changing a practice will pop up that you maybe haven't seen that thing pop up for 5 years. All of a sudden it's there in front of you.
Well, and Ken, I think, a lot of people, including myself, thought this crop was made. I mean, you see pictures in Texas, and these farmers are texting me saying, we're in I-State now. I mean, the crop looks beautiful, Ken. I don't think they ever thought they could grow that green and lush of a corn crop. The plants are taller things look great there. In my backyard in Missouri, things look good. I've been across the Midwest, things look fairly good. The weather for a drought that we thought we've been talking about since February, that the drought was coming, we haven't had widespread drought. And so I think for a lot of us, we just thought this crop was made. This is a curveball. This tight tassel wrap is a curveball that not a lot of us expected. But Ken, how concerned should we be about this rapid growth syndrome? I'm hearing a lot of farmers, I'm hearing a lot of folks talk about rapid growth syndrome and some of that that pops up in the spring. Is that part of the problem?
No, that's part of nature. The corn's going to go through it. When it takes off like that, you want to have all your eggs or your preparation for it. You don't, for instance, want corn running out of nitrogen in that rapid growth stage. You don't want it looking for nutrients, that type of thing. So everything you can do to get it prepped. So when the gun goes off and you go into that stage of rapid growth, that plant, can take off. So nothing you can do about the weather, but you can weather your soils by getting rid of action issues and stuff like that. And then managing your fertility, if you stave too much nitrogen for pollination right now, you've already missed the window, right? You want to make sure that plant never has a bad day, but you can't stop rapid growth. You don't want to stop rapid growth. It's just what kind of stresses are you going to have in that window? We've got to be very careful in that B8 to tassel window, because that's when a little bit of stress can cause a lot of trouble.
Last
Ken,
question. Oh, go ahead, Clinton, and then
I
I've
was
got
just
one more
going to say,
question
are
for
you
you
are
guys.
you seeing any short corn out there yet? Is it started to pop up? What do you think of it?
Yeah, and we have it here at the Corn College campus, and we look at the characteristics of it the same way. So we have pendulum, upright, semi-pendulum corn in the short corn. Managing that short corn is going to be key. Why are you planting short corn? So if you're planting short corn because you're tired of your corn blowing down, you got to buy a structured corn. So if I was on light soil, for instance, I need a pendulum leaf wide hybrid that can still cover the ground, because when you shorten the corn up, if it doesn't cover the ground in these hot days, you're going to cook it. Whereas if you're doing it for horsepower, and you're going to put it, you got to push the population up. So you got to be able to move the population around on it. In our yield trials right now, it's holding its own. It's not ringing the bell and walking away from it, but it's holding its own. And for growers, as they start to study this, if it's going to hold its own, and I take away some of the threat of green snap and wind, especially for these areas that tend to get green snap all the time. I think it's less residue to deal with in our no-till situation. So a situation where you're not dealing with such a tall plant. So I think it'll make its way. It's going to have to prove its way, though. I mean, the bushels are going to have to be there, or it won't happen. Now, as of right now, I haven't run across any short corn with the tight tassel wrap. That could change this week, right? I could find a field, but yeah, we got it here on the campus, and it actually looks pretty good.
Okay.
What's the one thing that you have planted on campus that you're most excited about? Like that this is going to be the future?
We have one plot here working with the company that has put traits in the soybean that when the soybean is affected by a fungus, it actually lights up the bean. And they have cameras over the beans, and they're taking pictures every night to see when the disease enters the plant. And within 24 hours of infection, their cameras can pick up that disease. And
oh my
God. This is the beginning of that technology. So if you think about moving that into corn, when you're dealing with tar spot, we can't see tar spot till 2 weeks after it's been infected. This technology, if it would allow us to see it in 24 hours, that would be kind of cool. So,
again, physically lights it up, like
yeah,
luminescence or something, right?
Yeah. So if you had a Blacklight and glasses, you could actually see it yourself, but the camera picks it up. And in the situation where down the road, this technology is geared for like the See and Spray sprayer. So when you're running your sprayer across the field, your sprayer could actually identify if there's disease in that field and what disease was. So it's got a long way to go to get to that level. Right now, it's just kind of sentinel plots for growers to figure out, okay, we've seen sudden death, we've seen white mold in this area, and then you start to look out for it. But it is it's kind of cool where this technology is going, and you realize, 10 years from now, what that'll look like will be pretty amazing, I think.
That's incredible. Ken, you're going to have to start running blacklight parties, I guess. And
what are you talking about? He already does.
Get yourself some cool glasses.
What do you think Corn College is?
That's right. The disco ball and the bell-bottom pants there.
It's like a rave. Okay, Ken, serious note, last question for you is, you mentioned $4 corn, sub $4 cash when farmers look at it.
Stop.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't want.
I
know.
Don't talk about it. It won't happen.
Ken, how concerned are growers right now when you look at prices, and how concerned are you, and what are some of the impacts on farms and the impacts on agriculture that we're not talking about now that we have corn prices so low and fertilizer prices that just won't let up, and we continue to see them move higher?
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion on what next year looks like and what we're going to do, and they will tap the brakes on fungicides, on fertilizer, and they have to from a financial standpoint. Most of the growers that we deal with are in pretty good shape and they're going about it the correct way. We're going to use, for instance, a soil test to tell us how hard we're going to tap the brakes. Variable rate helps there. And some of these farms, we can tap the brakes pretty hard for a year or two to see this thing turn around. But instead of blindly doing it, when somebody comes in and says, I got to cut. You say, well, how much you need to cut? I don't know, but I got to cut. How much you spending now? I don't know, but I got to cut. That's an emotion that's running him around, where you sit down and say, okay, do we want to cut 10%, 15? Do we want to, what's my overall budget? Certain fields we can cut a lot harder than others, that type of thing. But yes, they're looking at their inputs for next year. Kind of put this one under the bus as far as there's not much left to do on this one, except for the fungicide. And they're having that discussion: should I or shouldn't I put the fungicide on the beans? That type of thing. Going forward, thinking what can I cut? And you said, well, herbicide's kind of hard to cut because we're fighting tooth and nail to stay ahead of water hemp now. So you got to be careful where you're going to cut there. If you're going to cut, are you going to bring in a row crop consolidator or bean walkers, or what are you going to bring in? Fertilizer will be the first one that gets cut. And based on what I'm hearing within our customer base, it's probably going to get cut pretty hard. So there might be a lot of fertilizer sheds full of fertilizer by the end of the season that didn't go out because these guys are running the numbers.
Yeah.
I know, not a great note to end on, but it's the
No,
reality.
but those are tough. But it's all part of the building systems here. And I know, Ken, you've talked about it forever at all of your events. It's all about building systems here for success. And it's not just one thing. It's not just one hybrid. It's not just one decision. It's about making decisions that fit in your system to help you with some ROI at the end of the year. And I think, some years are better than others. And we just hope every year we have a chance to stay in the game here.
In our veteran farmers have been in long enough, they know farm cycles, right? And we're on the bottom of that farm cycle, and a lot of things that, we talk about 7 years, peak to peak, valley to valley. There's a lot of opportunities out there right now if you understand farm cycles. So guys are picking up land that other people are letting go. They're picking up machinery at a reduced cost, that type of thing. And they're preparing themselves for the next cycle. So, we can't be up and up and up every year. So it's the older clients that we have understand this. So they've been preparing for this cycle, and they'll actually expand during this down cycle. It's the younger guys that haven't lived through it yet, but it's going to be a little nerve wracking for them, depending on how much debt load and things like that they're carrying.
Yeah. Okay, and I know you got to hit the road. You're off to see a farmer, but we talked about so much today, and that's just kind of a glimpse into what Ken will be talking about next week at Corn College. What are the dates, Ken?
The 22nd, 23rd here at Hayward. So it's a 2-day event, rain or shine. So we've got all the plots ready. Our theme for the Corn College is making a stand. So we're going to focus on how to get that bean stand, how to get that corn stand, because that's the foundation piece. You'll be looking at a lot of different technology as well as diagnostics. So you're going to have to dig some plants. You're going to have to get in the dirt and get involved with it. We're going to look at root structure, soil density, that type of thing. But the secret to a big yield is a good stand, and that's where we're going to focus this year on what can you put on the planner? What can you do as your operation to make that happen? All the way down to weed control, right? Stand is all about, when you talk about soybeans, it's all about managing weeds, and weed control is becoming a bigger and bigger issue.
Yep.
True story. 15 years ago, in July, my first week on the job was at Corn College in Hayworth, Illinois. And I had never sweat so much in my whole life. Standing in the middle of a cornfield, they're like, hey, come out, shoot these stories with Ken, and we'll put it all together. And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. And it was hot, and it was sweaty, and it was like, it's kind of miserable in the middle of a cornfield, but I learned so much, Ken. And I'll never forget that, how much I learned in just a week's time, coming from Oklahoma, where we focus so much on, winter wheat and, kind of small grains, to coming to Illinois, where it was such a focus on corn and soybeans. It was just really, really a lot of great lessons there. And I know every year you do a good job with this event, trying to make it different and unique and new, and, find the important things to talk about that folks can carry through into the next growing season. So I hope you have a great event. No rain, all shine, but not too hot.
like I said, we're rain or shine either way, and about half the classes are in the field, so it will be a little warm, but the inside sessions are air
It's good
conditioned,
for
so
you.
you get a chance to
Good
cool
for
back
you.
down.
Yeah. Well,
Ken,
good.
thank you.
You
Thank you.
Yeah.
bet.
Safe
Thanks for
travels.
being with
Thank
us,
you.
Ken.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I was just about to
Awesome.
say, Corn College, does that strike up some fond
Oh,
memories?
man. It is. There's just you learn so much just by, and he's right, getting out in the field and
Mhm.
doing it, and that's what I think really sets that event apart from a lot of different events. Is like, I mean, you are just out
In it, in
in
the
the
trenches,
soil, like
in the
digging things
trenches.
up,
Yeah.
and like they make you make decisions, which I think is good.
Well,
But yeah,
Clinton, I
no,
mean,
it was so hot.
I learned something every time I talk to him. I can't
I know.
imagine spending 2 days just absorbing all of that from Ken. I mean, he's so good. So I can't imagine that. Okay. A couple other before we move on, and now that Ken's gone, a couple other what the sigmas from
Sure,
this.
do it.
Yeah. So last week, our reporter, who's the best in the business, Michelle Rook, um, caught wind that there were some dairies in South Dakota
Mhm.
not being rated by ICE, because we've been talking about ICE raids in agriculture, and that's kind of calmed down a little bit. But it's these I-9 audits, and so
Mhm.
what ICE is doing is increased I-9 audits that then are exposing that some of these individuals at these dairies are there illegally. Now, Clinton, I'm going to preface that by saying, and the rest of the story by saying, these dairies do everything they can. They are required to use the E-Verify system. So when an
Right.
employee comes in to apply for a job, you take their papers, you verify through the E-Verify system, and that system tells you, yes or no. It tells you good, yeah, yep, they're legal, they're not legal. It tells you
Thumbs
that,
up,
right?
thumbs down.
That's what the E-Verify system is designed to do.
Yep.
So these I-9 rates, obviously, are these I-9 audits are exposing some flaws in that system. And we spoke to Idaho Dairy this week, who said, listen, we've said for a long time that the Verify system, it shouldn't be on the employers to verify these employees are here legally. It should be on the federal government. So that's a whole nother layer. Anyway, so
Well,
Michelle,
and even if they have to use a system and you're requiring them to use a system, the
right,
system should work. Like,
correct.
and if it's not working, then maybe
There's a problem.
we need to do a little better job of creating systems that do work.
So she found out, because this is South Dakota and that's her home state. She found out that this
Mhm.
one dairy specifically, the I-9 audit, after that they were forced to fire within 10 days 39 of their employees. And I believe they only had a little over 50 employees. So when you
It's a
think
lot.
about that,
Yeah. Oh
for
my
a dairy
gosh.
that needs to milk 3 times a day, 7 days a week,
Oh my
that's a
gosh.
lot. So anyway, long story short, we heard this, and then we couldn't report it because we could not get someone to officially go on record. And that, Clinton, that's the hard part about our job, and we've talked about it in the past. We're not podcasters or people on social media that can just report what we hear. We have to verify everything, and you
Mhm.
have to go on record in order. We're not one that says, we're going to report all of these named sources. We have to have somebody that will put their name behind it, confirm it. So we weren't able to report it. Well, then I got a call.
Mhm.
I guess it was a call I guess it was Monday night. Was it Monday night? Yeah.
I believe
Got
that's right.
that Texas had 9 I-9 audits over the weekend. And so dairies have always there's a dairy that does every month they do I-9 audit drills. So if we are faced with an I-9 audit, let's to make sure that they have everything in the works. Every dairy conference that I go to, they're talking about what happens if you get an I-9 audit, but there's a surge in these. It's
Mhm.
interesting that it was targeted South Dakota and Texas, 2 red
Mhm.
states. Very interesting that those are the 2 states that were targeted by these I-9 audits. Anyway, so we reported it. Since then, Michelle found out that that dairy in South Dakota got a call, I think maybe from the labor department, who told them they can hire those 39 employees back. Clinton, bit of a problem. They had 10 days to get rid of those employees. Those 10 days were up. They got rid of those employees. How do you find those 39 employees that you were forced to fire?
I
But
know.
the whole point of bringing this up is this immigration issue that we've been talking about, and
Mhm.
everyone wants to point to these ICE raids, and everyone points to, what agriculture is saying is President Trump has done what he said he was going to do, and that's secure the border. We've now
Hmm.
passed the one big beautiful bill that's more funding for ICE agents and border security and all of that. Now is the time to address immigration. We have a system, an immigration system that was passed 40 years ago. 40 years ago.
Oh, the system just needs work. Like and I think his name Bob Goodlatte, who was in Congress. He had a whole plan to address some of this for agriculture in the workforce and immigration, and he couldn't get anybody to get on board to vote for it. And that's the biggest problem is we all know this is an issue. It's been an issue, but we can't get enough momentum in Congress for anyone to actually raise their hand and take a vote on it. And so we just keep kicking the can down the road. And so that's where you end up with the situation we're in now.
Well, and I'm
Yeah, whole life. I mean, it's been my whole life we've needed to do something different.
correct. And so when you look at agriculture, it's unique. Yes, we have H2A, but
Hmm.
dairy isn't included in H2A. And
Right.
you talk to
Right.
growers who use H2A, several of them, especially in California, some of the bigger ones. There's smaller like grain operations that use H2A and that
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
For bigger operations, H2A does not work for them. It's too cumbersome. You have to pay, I think it's I don't know, $4 above what you're required. I mean, it's the cost, the housing, the
Well,
requirements, it's
yes, there's a,
cumbersome.
a whole bunch of other
There's
things that are
so
tied
much that
into it.
goes with it.
Housing,
But the dairy
transportation.
industry, even though H2A isn't perfect, the dairy industry is right now pushing to get dairy included into H2A because it's the only guest worker program that exists. And so for
Mm.
them, that is the immediate fix. Let's get dairy included in H2A. Well, Clinton, I found out yesterday in some conversations, off the record conversations, uh, that there's severe pushback, not from Rollins, not from, from Nome, not from those, but there's severe pushback from a couple people within this administration that dairy is not going to be included in H2A because their old school thought is if we let dairy in H2A, these people are going to be here 15 years and that's not what we want. Like, what? So anyway, I was hopeful. I think there's hope
But a
that
lot
we
of these
are
workers have been there 15 years already.
correct, correct,
Whether
correct.
they, you know, uh,
And you need them. They're reliable. I mean, you need
well,
them.
and there's the
Military.
consistency. And really, Tyne, as I've read through your reporting this week, and I think you've done a fantastic job of covering this along with Michelle Rook and Karen Bonner. Um, it, the situation, the reality of it for our livestock industry, these aren't berries just dying on a vine. This is an animal welfare issue. You can't take tens or hundreds of people out of an industry all at once because we can't take care of the livestock. And so that's not appropriate. And so you have to come up with some sort of option, right? I'm not saying all of them are perfect. Obviously, we should look for criminals. Listen, I'm okay with that. But at some point, you have to say, we've got to come up with real solutions that actually work for the people doing the work here that are feeding our people and are feeding the country and are feeding the world. Um, you can't have this surge in protein without what we've seen growth in dairy. I mean, you look at these big companies. Chobani's invested $2 billion. We've got to have a workforce here that is stable and that is competent and that is able to take care of the livestock out there. They deserve it. The livestock deserve it.
Well,
So we got to do better for them.
we've got to do better. And I just don't. I mean, I understand nothing quick happens in Washington, but you've had 40 years.
Yeah, well,
40
yeah.
years. And I understand the thought that, oh, well, H2A is guest worker program. And so dairy's not included because they are not guest workers. But what other option do they have at this point? And so the thought that there are producers right now that feel like because this issue now is heightened, if
Mhm.
there's a silver lining in any of this, it's because this issue is heightened that maybe we will finally see some real reform, some meaningful reform when it comes to immigration. And several have said we have to figure out a way to get to President Trump because I think once we put this in front of President Trump, not someone telling him something different, once we put this in front of President Trump and say this is what's at risk, these dairy producers, this is the why, this is the how, this is what we need in order to keep the dairy industry running, that he will want to find a meaningful solution. I'm not sure if that's the case or not. That's just what a couple folks have told me, but it's frustrating. And I'm
Mhm.
frustrated this week in this reporting that now we have ICE that's using not raids, but I-9 audits to target some of these dairies in South Dakota and Texas. And it's exposing extreme flaws in the E-Verify system, which is part of the immigration system overall. It's exposing some extreme flaws. And with an administration that's all about finding solutions, why have we not addressed this and found solutions? And ultimately, Clinton, it's going to take an act of Congress. And as we've seen, it's really hard to get Congress to do something. But I think a lot of these producers are hopeful that finally we will see some meaningful reform. So we'll see if that's the case.
Maybe time for Doge to take a look at the E-Verify system. See what we need to do to make that a little more efficient and clean it up a little bit. Hey, are we going to get
Does
into?
Doge still exist?
I think so. I think it does. I don't know.
Okay,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
there
Since
the
Elon's gone, I
great
haven't
lead,
heard a lot about
yeah,
it.
the great leader left, I think, but I believe it still
Yeah,
exists. I don't know.
since the big breakup, I just haven't heard a lot about it. So
So much news to cover. This is so unscripted. Hey, are we going to do My Fantastic Life? Do you want to do that?
yeah, sure. Let's
Let's do it.
roll on. My fantastic life, Clinton. You want to go first?
You've been doing stuff, Tyne.
Oh, so you need me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, yeah. So at the beginning of the podcast, I told you
Mhm.
the one rule at our house is the girls can show. They just can't show live animals. They have to be
It's just
dead.
they gotta show
Um,
dead animals.
and for the first time, my dad is a retired ag teacher who helps with 4-H and is the ham leader. I'm telling you, my dad's darn good at
Hold on.
hams.
Ham leader. Ham leader.
Ham leader.
What does the ham project entail for those that maybe haven't hammed before?
I don't really know because that's his job. Okay, he is the leader.
We gotta cure it, right?
I will sign the girls up, but I'm not. Yeah. So you take it, you get the ham in, you got to cure it. Then it hangs in our shed all winter. And then when it starts to warm up, we bring it inside and go downstairs. Well,
You
my
smoke it
dad,
at some point, or is that part of the curing
at the end,
process?
you do smoke it. Yes. At the
Oh,
end, you
okay.
smoke it before you take it to the fair. So we smoked it like 2 weeks before we took it to the fair. Well, my dad he's very good at hams. So he just handles it. But one thing is, my dad is, some people, if it's their kids' projects, they're going to be selfish and their kids go first, right? That's not my dad. We're always last. So he had texted us this winter and said, "Hey, we ran out of hams. Are you okay if the girls go, next week because we don't have enough hams?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, whatever. That's fine."
Sure.
Well, the second rounds of hams that came in were too big,
Mm.
and so they tried to experiment on them. But things looked good. We thought everything was good, and then the girls find out they got a white ribbon. Their first white
Oh, shoot.
ribbon, first
Sh
one.
Oh my
You want
gosh.
to know why?
Is
The
that 3rd
hams did.
place? Is
They
that 3rd?
If you ain't first, you're last. So it was
Yeah.
last place. Anyway,
Ty these life lessons you're teaching.
oh yeah, I'll tell you some others in a minute. But anyway, so they didn't cure it. And we don't find out until they get a white ribbon. And I mean, the girls are devastated.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because we didn't know. We thought we had great hams and they were excited. And we always go to the ham sale and do all of that. So this year, our dead animal, the ham, didn't pan out. But other things did. I've got some pictures. So the girls, I'll see
Did
which
you
one
say
he
it
pulls up.
didn't cure?
Yeah, it didn't cure correctly.
Oh, it's too big or something.
It was too big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
mean, my theory, go big or go home, but I guess not when it comes to hams. So anyway, so they took different projects. One of them, we may not have them. Zach may put these in later, but one of them was their entomology project. So it's become a family affair. My dad got him into it, and we end up actually
Oh, yeah,
loving it.
nice.
Yeah, we love it. So I actually yesterday, as I was at work, my ring camera kept going off, and I'm like, why is my ring camera going off? I see James outside he must have been a conference call or a call with a farmer or something, but he's outside with a white net. And so like he will be outside on calls trying to catch these insects. But we love it. The girls, like, it's, you'd
Is
see
this a
before you,
Lepidoptera display, or what is?
well, that's one that's on the left.
Okay,
But
okay.
there's, I think
Hey,
they have,
listen, I took bugs for jocks in college. I'm all over it.
no way.
Yes, I did. I had to, Dr. Ken Pinkston And his whole thing was like, and it was all the athletes in this class, but it was part of the, science, ag sciences. And he'd always say, read the freaking question, because he goes, if you just read the question, you're going to figure out the answer. It's not that hard.
Well,
Anyway,
we've ended
sorry
up.
to interrupt. Go
No,
ahead.
that's hilarious. And there's so many people. I posted this on social, and there's so many people that are like, "Oh my gosh, we used to do this. We've got some really interesting insects. Can we send it to the girls?" Which they love, because last year they had to have 25. This year they had to have closer to 50. Next
Okay.
year they're going to have 200 a piece. So it is one
Ooh,
where,
I'm going to get on it.
yeah, I don't know
You
about that.
better get on it. Well,
But
now's the time.
now when you see a butterfly or something, like Kins is like, oh my gosh, like this week after the fair, of course, she found her first monarch. And she's been trying to get a monarch. And so they just have all of these things. Like when we were in Texas visiting James's family, we were out there, all of us were collecting insects. So it's really become a family affair. And that's what I really love about this project is wasn't into it. I'm like, really? Entomology, that's what we're doing. And we've ended up, like, all of us have been getting into it. We try to go find insects. And so next year we're going to have to find a bunch more. And then, so they're going to state with that. They can only take 2 projects to state.
Did you know
But
my wife comes from a long line of entomologists? It's in the
no.
genes here. Yeah. 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 Her dad was the state entomologist in Oklahoma for a while.
What?
He can hook
I
you
would
up.
like I would
Listen,
like
he
to
can
see
hook
his
you up
collection.
if you got questions. I know a guy.
And I would just love to see his collection, because any entomologist that I know, their collection is phenomenal. My James's coworker, Emily, her dad was an entomologist, maybe at UC Davis, maybe.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, his collection is phenomenal. Like, he would go to rainforests and collect butterflies.
Oh my gosh.
And, like, she took pictures of his collections, which I don't even want to know. Thousands of insects. And it's pretty phenomenal. Okay, Zach, I think, do you have another one do you have Kimbrel's? You can pull up either one. I'm not sure if you have.
Your girls are cute.
See which
They
one
look
you're
like they're
pulling
having,
up.
they're so proud. I love
They're
this.
getting big. And you know
I
how
know.
that is, Clinton. You
I
have
know. I got a
a
senior in high school starting,
I
and
don't
then my
how
middle
how
child is starting high school, so she's a freshman this year. It's crazy. Goes fast.
I just makes me sad. Okay, so this is Kimbrel. She did foods, and so this one is her banana nut bread with a praline topping. And it was so funny because I've told the girls, like, everybody does a good job on their projects, but what's going to set you apart is communicating about your project. So you really have to know it inside and out and answer questions, answer them well, make eye contact with the judge, shake their hand, all of that. Well, so she made this this bread with a praline topping, and afterwards she comes to me and I said, "How'd it go?" And she goes, "I'm going to the state fair." I said, "Really? You are?" And she goes, "Yeah."
She's going to-
Shh. I said, how do you know? She took a bite of my bread, said it was amazing, and said, "I think I'm going to have to take a picture of this recipe. Mom, it's in. I'm going to the state fair." Now, after she got done with her photography project, and I was a little upset because I saw her and she wasn't talking a ton about her photography project,
Uh-huh.
she comes up to me. I said, "How did it go?" And she was like, "It was okay." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think you talked enough about your project." And she goes, "Mom, what? Why are you so critical? It's not like I get paid for this. 4-H isn't my life. I don't understand why you think that I have to be perfect at everything." Like, so anyway, and so my dad,
4-H isn't my life.
4-H
How
isn't
many
my life.
parents have had that same comment said to them? I'm pretty sure I said that to my parents.
I don't get paid for this. Anyway, my dad is standing behind her because it's when, they're showing the projects, the judges are judging everything. It's a mass chaos. My dad's standing behind her and he's dying laughing and he's pointing at her and going, "That's you. That was
Yeah.
you." And he's dying laughing. Anyway, okay, last one is Kinsler. You want to go to Kinsler?
And look, now you get paid to talk. Look, see how that works? See how that works?
Yeah.
It worked out.
So this is Kinsler's.
Ooh,
This is,
that's a
and
pretty picture. Love that.
yeah. So we a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what, girls, my favorite thing to photograph is we were both in photography, and so we like to just go on the gravel roads in our Polaris Ranger. We just drive around, and if the girls see something, we stop, and then I kind of teach them. We take different angles, and so I kind of teach them about that. Well, I said, girls, my favorite thing to photograph is wheat, and I think there's a couple wheat fields that haven't been harvested yet. So we traveled about 45 minutes north to find a wheat field that hadn't been harvested and took pictures. But Clinton, that is probably one of my favorite crops to photograph. And we
Oh,
don't
yeah,
have a
it's
ton of
awesome.
wheat here north of the river in Missouri. Like, we just
You're
south
kind
of
of
the
in the
river.
golden hour there. You got some like sun highlights
Well,
and
that's the
stuff.
thing.
That
You
was
tell,
pretty
and so
nice.
the girls joked with the judges because they love to talk about the golden hour because that's my favorite time. I mean, it's the best time to photograph. And they told the judges, We've never photographed the golden hour in the morning because we don't like to get up that early.
Yeah,
And that is
that's so
true.
strong. That's, that's the best
So
comment.
it's always evening golden hour that we have. Anyway, it was a good fair. Yeah, so we fair is over, and the girls did demonstrations, and they'll take those to the state fair, and we'll do our demonstrations at the state fair. But
That's
just
awesome.
so many great life lessons, and just a reminder, Clinton, at the ham sale or the livestock sale and the sale of champions, that it's these local businesses that
Hmm.
really support these kids.
I know.
It's not Walmart, even though that's where
Right.
everyone goes here.
Yeah.
Um, it's not even some of these national farm supply chains that are in
Nope.
our community. It is these local small businesses, farmers. That's who's supporting these youth. And for some of these, that the only taste of agriculture is FFA. They didn't grow up in
Hmm.
ag. The only experience they're getting, the only exposure they're getting is through FFA. Um, it's just, there's so much pride in it, and it's these local businesses and these local farmers. Those are the ones that are supporting our youth, and it's just a reminder every year: vote with your pocketbook.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and unfortunately, it feels like that pool gets smaller and smaller every year as we, you know, lose some of the connection that there is to the
It is.
farm and to the fair and the, and really the community of people that come out to events like that and really support kids. I think it's important. Um, but congrats to the girls. Congrats to you and James for taking the time to do that. I think it's a lot of work as parents, but it's also important stuff. I'll bring some
It's a
stuff for
lot
my
more.
kids
It's
in
a
the
lot more
next
work if you
episode.
have livestock. It's a lot more work if you have livestock,
No,
and
the
we don't,
dead stock is better,
and
I
we
guess.
don't.
Speaking of livestock, that's what I want to show a couple pictures here if Zach has them. So my folks live in Northeast New Mexico. They're on my great grandparents' place, and they have, I call them, it's a boutique cattle herd where, I mean, they AI everything and they raise some show steers and heifers and things for kids to show. But I keep calling my mom and she keeps telling me it's raining. Every time I call her, she's like,
Honey,
"We got so much rain."
I can't.
Um,
I can't believe
and we
that's
don't
New
ever talk
Mexico.
about it because it'll go away. And of course, they've got more weeds than they'd like. But part of that is they don't get this much rain. And I don't know how much they've had, but she told me on the phone, I don't know if it has ever rained as much as it has in the last 2 months. Zach, I think there's another picture there. I mean, they've got grass that they've never had. And so for them out in kind of a semi-arid climate in the desert of New Mexico where you spend your whole life waiting on the next rainfall. And it's just, from an ag perspective, if it rains, you're going to have production, right? Like you're going to get crops, whatever. But out there, you just don't know. You can't expect it every year. And so, it's kind of fun. And, it's refreshing. You spend your whole life just waiting on the next rain. And so whenever it does, it's like all this stress just kind of releases and melts away because you never know, are we going to have to move cattle to another pasture? Do we have to rent something? Do we got to try to bale some CRP? Just all the things that you have to think about whenever it doesn't rain and you're a cattle producer. And so like I don't know how much they've had, but it's been a lot.
I
It's been a lot.
cannot believe that's New Mexico.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
green.
I
It
know.
is green for an area that was supposed to, we thought was going to have severe drought.
Yeah.
And this was a pipe dream just a few months
Well, and
ago, but to some.
there's this little pocket in that kind of area of New Mexico where it is just
It is.
poured.
It
It's
is.
just had great rains. And so, fingers crossed it just keeps going because, you know, some of those people in those droughty areas of the Southwest, I always feel bad. I feel like they just deserve it. Give them a chance. Let them have
Give
some
them a
rain.
chance. Just like when
Let
I
them
said
have some
earlier,
rain.
these Texas farmers saying, we're an I state now. Look at this corn.
Yeah.
Clinton,
Right?
like they deserve it. Let
I
them,
know.
let
I
them,
know.
let them enjoy it. All right, one thing before we go, real quick. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, that's a good question. I I'm probably not the most interesting ice cream eater. I like some things in my ice cream. I like a cookie dough ice cream, but I've always been, and it's just me. I've always liked vanilla. I know jokes, insert the jokes here, but I'm just, you can put stuff on that. hot fudge. I'm a hot fudge vanilla. I guess I'll eat a turtle sundae. I like that. It's pretty good.
You're so vanilla.
I know,
Seriously?
too, totally. I know. I like a mint chip. Mint chip's fine,
Okay.
and it's
Okay.
green.
Okay. Okay. I'm glad. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you
Okay.
said that. Okay. Because your
Okay.
mint chocolate chip
Mhm.
by 2028 ain't going to be green anymore.
You don't think?
No, because they announced this week, International Dairy Foods Association announced with Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Rollins, they had FDA. I mean, they had everyone there. They announced that 40 ice cream companies that make up 90% of the ice cream supply across the country have committed to remove artificial dyes from their ice cream supply. And so, Clinton, when I read that, I didn't think, I don't think about, oh, this ice cream has died, this ice cream has died, this ice cream has died. But Michael Dykes, CEO of
Uh-huh.
International Dairy Foods Association, he said, Tyne, why do you need your mint chocolate chip ice cream? Why do you need it to be green? What if it
I don't
tastes
know.
the
It's just
same? What
always
if
been green.
exactly, exactly? And I
I
hadn't
don't
thought
guess it
of it.
has to be.
I know, but I hadn't thought about that. So it's those things. So right now they're exploring things like, okay, what are some natural dyes that we can use? But one thing Michael said is, when we talked to FDA, when we made this commitment and we had to get everyone on the same page, including
Mhm.
FDA, we said, okay, if we find a natural color and a natural dye that we can use in these ice creams, we need this approved in months, not years. And I hadn't thought about that type of stuff. So as you
Uh-huh.
remove some of these dyes, the FDA is going to be coming under even more pressure to test and approve some of these things. But
Mm.
our food may look different. So your mint chocolate chip ice cream may not be green, and it is the perfect conversation to have because not only are we in a National Ice Cream Month, but Sunday is National Ice Cream Day. And so I know
There
how
we
I'm
go. What are
celebrating
you gonna have? What's your favorite?
pralines and cream.
Pralines. That's a good one.
Oh, it's my
That's a good
favorite.
one.
Praline
Yeah.
cream, if they don't have that, I'll do butter pecan. But, there's
Ah.
it depends on it depends on where we go. We have like I said, when I say vote with your pocketbook, I meant, you shop local, and support, even though it may be a little bit more expensive, the local ones, the mom and pop businesses, you really wanna keep them going. We have a local ice cream, shop that's like 10 minutes away, so we try and it's all hand dipped, different flavors. But I thought about it, like how many of those are different colors and how many of those
Mhm.
colors. You mentioned Superman when we were
The
off camera.
Superman ice cream. Yeah. It's
Man ice cream
blue.
may not be blue, but they did. But there is a blue tint, a natural blue tint that they found. It may
Okay.
not be as blue, but Clint, like I said, it's just something I didn't think about. I'm not one that has thought about
Mm.
artificial dyes in the past. Maybe I should have, but I just haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
Um, it doesn't. I'm not one that sees that it impacts my kids like some people claim, and so I guess I just haven't thought about it. So I don't look at foods and think, is that artificial or is that natural? I don't know. But anyway, I guess
No,
we're gonna start
well, it's a good reminder to enjoy some ice cream this month and,
this
do
Sunday,
our best,
National
well, and
Ice
especially
Cream
this Sunday,
Day.
and, do our best to support, the dairy farmers out
I do
there.
every day. I
Yeah,
do every day.
absolutely,
They said that
absolutely.
it's 97%. The IDFA says 97% of Americans say that ice cream is their favorite dessert. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, that
I'm
has to be true. That has to be true research. I believe that with my pocketbook.
I'm one of those 97%. I
I
can tell
agree.
you that. Anyway,
I agree.
all right, great discussion, Clinton. Ken was fascinating as always, but
Always.
who would have thought that this would be on our bingo card this year?
I don't know. It's so true.
And
Overly tight tassel wrap. Say that 10 times fast.
that's what I'm saying. I had to like say it a couple times before I recorded. Oh, and before we go, I think maybe we do have this weekend on the show, things are gonna look different. I'm so excited.
Ah,
I am
oh.
so excited
Well, we'll have to
because
show some pictures of it next time.
yeah, because our studio is finished and it's the real
Oh, there it is.
deal.
Look, you got a
Real deal.
picture. Awesome. Well, you got Ag Day up there. You need Farm Report. There we go. Perfect. Looks good. Got that new studio.
Yep.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
excited.
Well,
That's
congrats. I know it's
that's
been a
this
lot
week.
of hard
That's
work
me
to get
actually
there.
dressed up. Oh my gosh, it has been
Yeah.
we have been in a temporary studio since Thanksgiving.
I was gonna say since like 2018.
Well, yes, but but that was by choice. I will never complain because I'm the one that chose to leave South Bend and move back closer to family. And so because I moved out of the South Bend studios, which you have, I knew I wouldn't have that nice of a setup when I moved to Kansas City. And so it was kind of it was supposed to be temporary, but it was a little bit longer. But now we are in our forever home.
Good. Get your
I'm
new
so
digs.
excited.
All right. Well, everyone will have to tune in and check it out.
Yep. Tune in this weekend. U.S. Farm Report to see how it looks. The
All
real
right,
McCoy.
well, thanks for tuning in for Unscripted, everybody. Appreciate you.
Until next time, live your life unscripted.
Farm Journal is going to hold the first ever Yield Academy for 2025. It's going to happen August 21st in Rochester, Minnesota. Listen to this group. Real advice from folks who've walked out in the fields. Ken Ferry, David Hula, Randy Dowdy, and we will get some market outlook from Dan Bossi at Ag Resource as well. Get the latest on what's working in agronomy, equipment, and marketing today. And that is the last day of Crop Tour 2025. So stick around for the final meeting that night in Rochester. Just Google Farm Journal Yield Academy, and that will take you to the homepage for the event.
Thanks for joining us. You can dive into more of Unscripted on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Clinton Griffiths.
And I'm Tyne Morgan. From all of us here at Farm Journal, keep it real as you live your life unscripted.
Unscripted is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.